Okay, we're recording.
Great. Hi, I'm Fraser O'Leary. I'm the Ward 4 representative on the State Board of Education. This is the Educators Excellence Committee, and it's June the 20th at 4:03 p.m. And we'd like to start the meeting, and I will leave it to Jennifer to guide us through the agenda.
Sure. So the first, we have two brief items this afternoon. I know the committee members were hoping that Aussie's educator workforce report would be out by now. It is not. They've told us that they're hoping it comes out this summer. And so in the meantime, Representative O'Leary came up with some questions about just like educator data in general that you all could discuss. And so you'll go through those as well as kind of next steps for the committee and its work. And I'm happy to fill in where I can, with what I know about the last time that they released that educator workforce report. So
And Jennifer had can share the last time they did a report with us, but I don't know how valid it would be. And Jennifer, did you find out anything about what this summer means in their definition of when the report is supposed to be? I know
I
we
have
talked about it.
not, yeah, I haven't heard specifics, but I know that's this report is one of the many things that they're working on, also in the midst of their leadership transition. So we might not get specifics, at least for a few weeks. The last educator workforce report was released in 2022. They had four main sections. So I don't know if these will be the same sections, but I would imagine so. So number one was the education landscape snapshot of schools, students, and educators that described school-based staff in public schools in DC. So teacher characteristics, experience level, race, ethnicity, things like that. The second was demand for teachers. So how many teachers are needed? And they used that by comparing filled teaching positions to the vacancies. The third was the educator supply and pipeline. So explaining how educators are supplied to DC schools, including the pipeline of educators from DC's educator preparation programs. And then finally, they had the teacher, school leader, and paraprofessional mobility and retention, which is pretty self-explanatory. So while you all are discussing what would be useful, again, I imagine that it will be similar data in this, whenever this year's report comes out. I'll make sure to put this in the chat for you all.
Do we know, um, and Jennifer, maybe Robert, maybe you know the answer to this. I have no idea. What, who they survey to get is this just a data dump from the schools themselves rather than asking human beings about things?
I don't see any indication in the last report that they were speaking directly to teachers. It does look like aggregations of um,
Data.
data, who they do have some about teacher effectiveness, teacher demographics, but it's not, the exit interview kind of data that we have been interested in and that we've only gotten through, I think, the Mary Levy report and Empower Ed survey. Is
Right. And that's
all
and
kind of
that's what we need to know the information that will help inform what needs to be done. Because like right now, all right, it's the end of school. So graduations, I think is tomorrow the last day for graduation. I think it is. It must be. I'm going to Roosevelt's graduation. Have you been to any graduations, Robert?
no.
Uh, I'm going to Rose. This will be on the 4th. Roosevelt's at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Friday afternoon. I would imagine that's the last graduation. And I'd really like to know who we can push to find out because they have graduation. They announced at the graduations how many people graduated. All right, that has nothing to do with summer school, but it gives you a number. All right, I talked to Saul Brown, the principal at Jackson Reed. They had over 800 graduates at Coolidge and Banneker and Cardozo, the three schools that I went to graduations. That doesn't even add up to 800. So, but they are also the big, by far, probably twice, almost twice as big. I guess Eastern is second, isn't it? As far as population. Does anybody know? I think Eastern has the second most students, and it's nowhere near what Jackson Reed has. But the frustrating thing for me at the end of school is it shouldn't be hard to get a list of all the students who graduated from the senior high schools by next week. Do you think that's a legitimate ask? Welcome, Ben.
What is it that you want to ask the students?
No, I want to know from the system, from the schools, how many students graduated from your high school.
Oh,
I mean, I
These-
think Aussie has that information, right? Like the question is, will they share it with us? I mean, that could be one follow up that we should just ask them, and then we can know that. But I mean, at Capital City, we were audited with how many students were on track to graduate, and then we had to share that data with Aussie, so they know that. I mean, if we just want to, I would say that make a recommendation that we ask Aussie for that. I don't know if it's best to just do it by email or if we should do it at a working session. So my question would be, how is it best to do that? But if that's, I would also be interested to know that information. I'm curious as to how people think we should ask for it.
I think that it would be good information for us to have at the working session.
And Aussie will not be coming to the July working session, but President Thompson sent an email that the members will have time to discuss again, like especially in the next several months while they're going through this transition period, which questions, topics, areas we would like them to consider as they're sending us a transition plan and how to move forward with the work together. And so I think that this question about the number of students graduating should be included and brought up in that conversation. It's my suggestion.
Is there so the new uh, superintendent she'll start working before our working session.
I don't know. And I also don't, I know that the people on this meeting know who it is, but I don't know if it's been publicized yet.
Oh, okay. I thought it had been.
I'm
But-
not sure. Maybe Karuna, you can see if there's been like a press release or a public announcement, but I wanted to flag that just in case.
Okay, so if it is public knowledge, then I don't know if it would come from this committee. It definitely would come from leadership. Then I would think it would be very important that she come and meet with us just to introduce. She's been at one of our meetings, right? Jen, do you remember?
I don't think I have
Seems like
met this person.
Robert, do you know?
Oh, go ahead, Karuna.
There has not been an announcement.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. But I know it might feel longer, but I've only been on the staff for about a year. So it's possible this person joined a working session before I started.
Yeah, not in my time. But to get back to we're trying to get at teacher retention data, right? And as far as I know, there's not any systemized collection of exit data from teachers themselves.
I never had an exit interview. And that was 7 years ago. And the teachers, this principals have an idea. They don't know. I mean, the way the system is set up, they don't really know. They hope they know who's coming back. But a teacher could call a principal the day before school started, or the day before the teachers had to report, let's say, and say, I'm not coming back, or I'm going to another school. That was one of the things that came up at a community meeting the other day. The principals were so frustrated about people leaving and not the system not taking care of it. But do you think if you talk, I mean, I talk to my principals all the time, and so I sort of have a feeling about how many they're got coming back, but then they're not sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's just the issue necessarily. I think that at this point, the council has required that DCPS conduct exit surveys for teachers leaving. And I agree with you, Fraser, because like previously it was optional for teachers in DCPS. This year, it is still optional in the charter sector. You know, as I left Cap City, I did an exit interview, but like I chose to do that because I wanted to. I had to arrange it independently. It wasn't something that my school like facilitated. And so I think we just need to ask Aussie if there's a way that they can report on the data from the exit interviews this year, so that we can have information on that. Because I think going at it piecemeal from principal to principal, it's not something that they would be required to give us. I think it's something that that is standardized that we just need the information on.
And what I'm hearing is that you all are really looking for more qualitative data, right? Obviously, they have the numbers about the number of teachers staying or leaving DCPS or moving to another school, but beyond that, like asking the teachers questions. So are there any other like qualitative needs, like data needs or things that you all would want to see?
I mean, I think it's a both and. For me, I'd like to see the quantitative numbers and to have the qualitative measures that you're talking about, and to just have a status report on that. Um, you know, we're about a year and a half since the council had passed that into, or I guess a year since the council had required that. So let's see where things stand.
Or all do the I mean, the bottom line on some of this has to do with the fact that there are different rules for different schools, or different rules for different uh, areas. I mean, DCPS has its rules, and the charters have their, and nobody has the same. Even though the council passed this kind of thing, we don't get any kind of consistent information. We should know what happened at each school.
Yeah, well, my understanding is the council did not include charter schools, and that's why it's optional. So, you know, I know I personally have advocated for extending it. I don't know if we want to do that in a more formal way.
I'm all for that. I think one of the biggest problems with our systems is there isn't a consistent um, informational stream. It's just like the standardized test at the end of the year. Not all of the um, charter schools gave the same test.
So my bigger question here, I guess, is like just like us getting clear on the process of communication with Aussie from our committee and within board leadership. So Jen, what do you recommend for like steps on that?
Yeah, I think that right now coming up with a list of these topics and questions that you have for Aussie. So I'm taking them down, and I'll write them down for Representative O'Leary to share in the report. But also, I think that's the first step, because the working session's in about 2 weeks. So that will allow all of you as members to come up with a comprehensive list of everything that you would like to continue working with Aussie on as they go through this leadership transition, right? Because, even with the interim, we don't know how long that person will be in the interim position and the work that that person was leading, what's going to happen with that. So we know, like, I know there's a lot of questions. And so I think coming up with very specific questions that you all have for Aussie, and then bringing those up at the working session so we can have one list on behalf of the entire board.
So then you're saying the point at the working session would be to generate a fuller list to then be able to send to Aussie?
Yeah, because as they're, I mean, I guess as they're working with this interim, they're also still working on a transition plan and what that looks like. So there's uncertainties for us there, but knowing that we have work that we want to do in the summer as we prepare for back to school, and all of our committees have questions. So I do think that would be the next best step. Is it sounds like that's what President Thompson had in mind for the working session on the 3rd.
Yes, Robert.
I was just adjusting my screen, but I would say let's put those asks on the list for the qualitative data.
Yeah, I've got qualitative data from teachers. Is it just an exit survey, or are there other things that you are interested in?
I don't think we need to have an exhaustive list. I think that what Robert, we should have, we want to know how many teachers are leaving the system. And I would like to know the graduation numbers from all of the high schools. Because the teacher retention information is going to be in flux until the first day of school. I've never understood why we couldn't find out the first week of school if there was teachers missing. Just a number, how many teachers don't you have? I mean, when you go into school, the principal tells you they need 4 more teachers, and it's the first week of school. Kids are getting cheated out of a week of education. Now, you might say, well, it's only the first week of school. Look, I started teaching from the first minute of class. They were under the hammer for 180 days. And I think that it's important that we can't get a teacher retention figure in our heads until after the beginning of August. But we can get graduation, and we can get numbers from schools about how many teachers they know have left. so that there are how many vacancies there are at the beginning of July. And those are doable figures. Do you think we need anything else? Robert?
Not on retention, but I think, there are the other topics we will add to this list.
Like what? Just, I
Like-
mean,
The pipeline stuff and the
oh, right.
evaluation systems.
Did the workforce report give any data on the pipeline?
There is no workforce report.
The last one had, I think the closest thing was educator supply and pipeline, explaining how educators are supplied to DC schools, including the pipeline from DC's educator preparation programs. I know you all mentioned induction also last meeting.
Right.
I don't see that word, at least in this snapshot, but I don't know if it goes deeper into.
When was that published? Was that for this school year?
Not
2
yet.
years
No,
ago.
this is I'm looking at the last one from 2022. And I shared with the committee before you joined, Representative Williams, that this year's report isn't out yet, and OSSI is hoping that it comes out this summer, and that's all the information I have right now. But again, knowing that it's one of the many things they have going on currently.
Yeah, I'd like to formally request that like board leadership ask OSSI when we can have that data. Because and I think that we now have a meeting in August. So if we could put a timetable on that by like, mid-July, like give them another month. To me that seems reasonable, or at least ask for a timeline on that. I mean, they give us timelines for everything. I feel like we should be able to ask for that information so that we can advocate effectively at the beginning of school.
They already have the template, right? But they just have to plug in the dates.
Gotcha. So Jen, will you follow up with board leadership on that?
Yeah, I think
Or is
that
that Representative O'Leary? How does this work I'm just trying to get clear on like
No,
the
it
communication.
goes to Jen.
well,
through
again, I think in my follow-up after the committee meeting, I'm going to include the questions and topics that you all have mentioned in this meeting, make sure that it represents what you all have mentioned. And if it's correct, give me feedback either way. I think that you all can take that list to the working session on July 3rd. And then again, the other members are going to add their items. I know each of your committees that you chair are working on various topics that involve OSSI as well. So that is currently, I think, the next best step.
The induction part was what's happening as far as teacher training during the year. The kind of teacher training that they're getting. And in the summertime. Is that Robert? That's how it is, right? That's what we talked about.
Well, I think we are interested in that, but we also want to know just like what kind of programs that they had before entering teaching. So, are they coming from Teach for America, or have they graduated from a graduate school for education, or are they coming through as fellows from urban teachers or
Right.
NYU, whoever?
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And I think that
That was the fourth thing, I think.
Those kind of questions about the programs that teachers are doing before and during teaching in DC could be things that we could research ourselves as well. I know that was brought up last meeting. So wanted to remind.
I guess my question would be how, Jen?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
our
know.
that's our second agenda item, right?
Yeah,
Talk about how. Um,
good segue.
so I'm curious about. It seems like there are two possible pathways. One being a consultant, like the precedent of the teacher retention work, or whether that's something that would be done by in-house staff. And I don't know, long ago I asked about like money for research, and um, the response was in part that, well, we've hired more people to do research on the board staff. So, but I don't know how that works out in practice. But I think, one of those two pathways, whichever is most viable, we would want somebody who's able to dedicate time to this topic for an extended period.
Yes, and as the person who leads the policy and research team, I would say that I think that my recommendation would probably be a combination of both. I mean, a consultant would be the one who could spend their time, having these conversations with teachers, going out into schools. And then me and my team could do some of that, like in-house research, the, reports and things that we can access with the resources that we have as well. So I could see it being very complementary.
So would that mean initiating like a procurement process? Is there like is there a threshold for something that needs to go for a full request for proposals, or how does that work?
Yes, I think that would be the next step. I would go, an action item I would take would be to go back and see how much, for example, for the teacher retention work, like what that all entailed and how much it cost. Because that was also before I started in this position. I think that would give me a better idea of whether it would make sense to do something similar with the teacher induction.
When I was in charge of the teacher retention part, and Mary Levy's did the report, but what it did was inform our remarks about what the problems were with teacher retention, because it identified a significant number of reasons why teachers were leaving. Now, when we did the healthy schools thing for NASB, we had a grant for $10,000, and we hired a consultant who gave us incredible work for $10,000, and we got a great report out of it. But I'm trying to remember if there has been another paid consultant for any other committee except maybe the social studies committee, because there was money involved in paying the people on the committee or outsiders on the committee to write it and do all this other stuff. I would think, but I don't know, Jen, and I don't remember another committee that had reports that really were published.
This was also before my time, but the governance report, but I can't remember if that was all.
I think the governance report might have been more in-house than,
Okay.
I won't say outhouse, but
yeah, external.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. And it might be, if she's willing, it might be worth reaching out to Mary quickly just to ask like how that worked out, like whether it was adequate if she would suggest any changes.
I can, I'll try to do that. Mary hasn't been in good health for about a year. But she did submit, you remember we had a report on, help me out on what it was. We got a report for a meeting in the last year that she submitted to, as testimony.
Oh, that was when the panel topic was on the budget.
Okay, yeah, right. And that was really a good read. But I'll see what I can do about that. And Jennifer's gonna remind me of that, right, Jen? Quickly to do it. I'll call her. What else? Do we have anything else that we want to
I
there's a
think
lot of,
I think technically you all have covered the topics, aside from when you all want to meet again.
well, I'm is this date all right with everybody? The whatever this is, the third Thursday of July. I
That
mean,
would work for me.
the last time we talked, we were talking about, I thought maybe meeting for at least 6 months every month. But I think we want to find out what we found out between now and a month from now, and then go from there. Because then we haven't even talked about uh, the school buildings or anything, but I don't know if that's what we should be talking about on this committee. Although I think it has a lot to do with educator excellence. If, like Roosevelt, has no air conditioning right now, if you can imagine. And they're planning summer school to start when summer school starts. But that's something we could talk about another time. Anything else?
I
Ben?
mean, I think for me, it's just about the turnaround of the work and the workflow. I think we need to be able to make sure to ask at the latest. Like, Jen, do you think you could flag in the notes that Thursday after the working session, like we can at least get something formally to Aussie so that they have at least a 2-week turnaround to be able to get us an answer, or hopefully we can just go back and forth with them to see if it's doable. But if we don't have the data that we need around exit surveys, around knowing what they're willing to do with induction programs, without knowing, any quantitative or qualitative data around why teachers are leaving, like we can't action plan effectively. So I would like to have at least something from them, like a response, even if it's not a public report before the next meeting. Otherwise I feel like we're still going to be asking the same questions.
I agree. Even if it's just a one pager with bullet points on it, it would be nice to know what they're doing.
Yeah, so that's one piece there. And then I'm not clear around the action steps around what was just named with Mary Levy and retention. Can someone clarify what you're exactly doing, Fraser, or what the committee is doing next on that item?
I just think it's important for us to know, because they'll come, they come up with like a 18% number of teachers who left the system, and they act like that's not important. I'm not saying we need to do another. I don't think it's in our best interest to do another teacher retention report. But I
I
think
think, and what we were talking about wasn't necessarily doing that, but getting the information about teacher induction, which is something that you all were looking for. And I think Representative Williams, you had mentioned talking with Elizabeth Ross about. And so, and that's what Representative Henderson was talking about with, like, whether it's Teach for America, or other programs during and before teaching. And so what would that look like if we were to do something similar to what was done for teacher retention, for teacher induction, just like myself and Representative O'Leary will start looking into that.
Do you think you could have like a draft proposal, Jen, by
Yeah.
like the next committee meeting? Like just so that like we could also support that work with figuring out gaps or putting forth a formal proposal to the board. I mean, I think that's a unique thing that falls within our purview that can be helpful in this conversation, you know, to know more data around where teachers are coming in from, how they've been trained, and then being able to ultimately like match that with, are they staying in DC's classrooms
Mhm.
and how effective are they?
Yeah, and that's, just as an old person, it's important to know why they're coming in, but it's really important to know why they're leaving. Because, the 5 teachers who have been teaching for 5 years are not leaving at the rate that a 1 or 2 year teacher is leaving. And then it gets sort of personal. Have they been helped? Have they been mentored? Have they been given the support they need as brand new teachers? Because nobody starts teaching as a veteran. And nobody starts teaching knowing jack about those 25 live bodies in that classroom, regardless. Like my son, I told you, just started in a kindergarten classroom across the street from our house at John Lewis Elementary. And he has no teaching credentials at all. And he's a much more experienced teacher now after 1 year than he was that first day of school.
Well, that's the thing, Fraser, that's like so perplexing, right? Because that's a DCPS school, correct?
Yeah.
So how is a teacher with no credentials able to teach in DCPS?
Well, he has his credential is he graduated magna cum laude from St. John's University, but he graduated in business. And the answer is, how did he do that? Is because the system needs teachers.
Right, but like you still need to there, like when you're applying still for a provisional license, like you still need to meet
no,
certain. So you're
no,
saying that the Aussie has relaxed their standards for getting a provisional license?
he doesn't have a license.
Okay, so that's new to me. Like to me, that doesn't. It's hard to understand how that's possible.
Well, that's a question you're right. That's a question we need to have as part of these questions is what's the bottom line for a person to be able to step into a classroom and teach our children?
Is
What
this
do you
for like,
have to have?
is this
'Cause
for a lead position or an assistant position?
No, even he's a minute he's a educational aide. He's
Okay.
not he's not teaching. Although I think he taught about 1/4 of the year because of teacher absence and stuff like that. And he had to follow lesson plans and things like that. But it's a matter of what do you have to do to, let's say, a lead teacher. What are the qualifications for a lead teacher?
Right. And I think that's fair and worth us clarifying if anything has changed because of COVID. But just I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with wrapping things up. So we are going to have a formal ask after the working session where we with particular exit survey data and other data that we would like to gather from Aussie at this point of the year. And then Fraser, you'll work with Jen to be able to come up with a proposal for how we can study and report on induction and how teachers are coming into DC classrooms.
Right.
And I'm compiling the lists of questions and asks that you all have to share with the wider board. Again, because you all will be talking about ways to continue partnering with Aussie during this whole transition of leadership and everything.
Thank you. And Jen, is it possible? I think people would appreciate think time like on that. Is it possible that we could send that out to the whole board prior to the meeting so that people could respond via
Oh, yeah.
email or just have more time to think about it before the public meeting or I mean the working session?
Yeah, I can share, that,
Can we have it by
Yeah.
Monday?
well, no, I mean, in my, I always send an email before all of our meetings. In my email before the working session, I can share like, President Thompson brought up that we're going to have this discussion. She brought up, some of the existing topics that we have questions about, including graduation requirements, graduate profile. And here are some of the, questions that the Educator Excellence Committee has come up with as well. Just that, so everything's in one place.
Ben, does that answer your question?
I think so. Is that something for the board or something to communicate to Ozzy?
Oh, I see. You meant like give Aussie the think time.
No, no, no. I was saying give
Give
us the
us.
time initially, but like you were saying that she wanted everything in one place for us to consider prior to the working session.
No, I think it's going to be talked about at the working session, and then you all will come up with the list together.
Okay.
Yeah, but you were asking like if I could share the list that you all came up with today
With the board.
with the other members ahead of
Yeah.
time, which I can.
That's what I was saying about, can you do it by Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll send it to you all first just to make sure it's correct.
Great.
And then
Oh, okay, Monday, let's say after July. Well, no, we meet before July 4th, right? No, next
Yeah.
week is,
there's
Yeah.
another week in between,
right.
yeah, the working session.
That makes sense. Thank you, Jen, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you all very much. The Educator Excellence, Committee is now, out of session.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.